Welcome back to Poorly Educated Today in the News, where the global economy feels like it got duct taped to a bottle rocket and lit by a man yelling, "Trust me, I saw a YouTube video." Every morning I wake up, check the news, and feel like the whole planet got reorganized by a drunk assistant manager at a fireworks warehouse. We got wars, purges, tariffs, layoffs, fake videos, and weather disasters, all moving at the same speed as a raccoon on espresso. So let us do what America does best: stare directly into the machinery, crack a joke, and hope the transmission fluid is not also on fire. Segment 1. The Department of Just Us. The White House kicked off the week by firing Attorney General Pam Bondi, and not because of the part where sensitive Epstein material got handled like raffle prizes at a county fair, but because apparently she was not angry enough at the president's enemies. That is where we are now. You can fumble one of the most radioactive document piles in modern politics, but the real offense is not using the Justice Department like a weed whacker on behalf of your boss. It is less law and order than revenge with office furniture. It is like hiring a guard dog, then firing it because it kept guarding the house instead of biting your neighbor's mailman. And then Todd Blanche slides into the acting role, which is the sort of phrase that sounds temporary until you remember temporary in Washington now lasts about as long as a styrofoam cooler in a tornado. The bigger problem under the joke is real enough to make your coffee taste nervous. Once the Justice Department becomes just another extension cord running out of the Oval Office, the whole idea of neutral law starts looking like decorative wallpaper. At that point, justice is not blind, it is peeking through the curtains with a campaign hat on. And while all that is happening, the administration also found a way to bypass Congress to fund Homeland Security during a shutdown, which is the political equivalent of a man locking himself out of his own trailer and then deciding the window was more of a suggestion. Segment 2. Mailman, soldier, priest, gone. Then things got even more normal, by which I mean deranged, because the administration decided the Postal Service should help sort out citizenship for mail-in ballots. Nothing says small government like asking a postal carrier in tube socks to become a roaming constitutional checkpoint between the electric bill and your Valpak coupons. They want the mailman cross-referencing databases and deciding who gets a ballot. Like Uncle Sam turned the whole election system into a haunted scavenger hunt. Somewhere in America, a guy already mad about junk mail is now being told democracy may arrive in a secure envelope approved by bureaucrats who act like stationery is national defense. And speaking of national defense, Pete Hegseth fired the chief of staff of the Army during an active war, plus the head of training and, for reasons only available through divine revelation, the chief of chaplains. I do not know how to explain that calmly. That is like changing the pilot, co-pilot, and in-flight mechanic while the plane is still over the ocean and then firing the priest in case anyone wanted hope. Beneath the absurdity is the ugly truth. When military leadership starts getting shuffled around like poker chips during a live conflict, you are not projecting strength. You are projecting panic in a nice tie. Segment 3. Oil, Empire, and Other Bad Business Plans. Meanwhile, the war with Iran is being pitched with all the consistency of a man trying to sell a base boat, a timeshare, and a miracle vitamin in the same sentence. First, the line is, "We hit our targets. Total victory, mission contained. Everything under control." Then a U.S. aircraft gets shot down, and suddenly the rhetoric starts wandering over toward maybe taking oil fields, maybe staying longer, maybe turning a military operation into a coupon-clipping expedition for empire. That is not strategy. That is a yard sale with missiles. And markets reacted exactly how you would expect when one of the world's biggest oil choke points turns into a stress ball. Crude starts climbing, stocks start twitching, and regular folks are left wondering whether their summer road trip is about to cost more than the vehicle. The grounded part here is not funny at all. Energy shocks hit everybody, especially people already living close to the bone, and every extra dollar at the pump is another reminder that global power games always send the bill to somebody buying sandwich meat in Indiana. Brazil at least has the good sense to say, fine, we will just use ethanol and keep moving, while America stands there acting shocked that setting the Middle East on fire might affect gasoline. That is like kicking over your grill and being stunned the hot dogs got involved. Segment 4. Jobs up, careers down, welcome to the robot barn. The jobs report comes in hot. Manufacturing is up, construction is up, and the White House is dancing around like it just won a base tournament with a borrowed fish. Fair enough. A lot of people need work, and blue-collar gains matter. But at the same time, the tech sector is getting fed into an industrial shredder labeled artificial intelligence, with layoffs landing by the tens of thousands, and some folks finding out they were fired by email before their first sip of coffee. That is cold enough to refrigerate a side of beef. We are building data centers with human labor so software can replace the humans who built the data centers, which is just capitalism drawing a snake eating its own hard hat. Then you get OpenAI buying a media network, which is just delightful in the same way mold in the bread box is delightful. The companies making the machine that rewrites the labor market now want to own the microphone explaining why the machine is good for you. That is like a fox buying the henhouse newspaper and running an editorial titled, "Relax, this is fine." There is a real thing underneath the joke, too. When powerful companies control both the disruptive technology and the coverage of that technology, public trust gets flatter than a possum on Route 40. And just to sprinkle more weird on the casserole, SpaceX files for a monster IPO partly on the strength of an AI system that is apparently being rebuilt from scratch after the original brains walked out, which sounds less like investment confidence and more like trying to sell a racehorse while admitting the legs are currently in beta. Segment 5. Citizenship, storm clouds, and the national vibes. The Supreme Court is now having to entertain arguments over whether birthright citizenship means what the plain words say it means, which is one of those moments where you realize America has become a group project run by people who hate the instructions. The government's theory sounds like it was assembled from dusty footnotes, bad coffee, and a dare. Even some justices seem to be looking at it like a raccoon that wandered into church. But the grounded part is deadly serious. Once you start treating citizenship like a raffle ticket that can be voided by legal improv, you are not just changing policy. You are sawing on the beams, holding up the whole house. At the same time, ICE numbers show the border may be quieter while interior arrests ramp up, including plenty of people with no criminal record at all, which tells you the enforcement machine is not interested in going on a diet just because the pantry is less crowded. Add in tornadoes, floods, and the government deciding maybe it should stop tracking the full cost of major disasters, and you start to see the official management philosophy of this era. If reality is expensive, maybe just quit measuring it. That is the same logic as a man who cannot afford his truck payment deciding the speedometer is the real enemy. Also, there is a new COVID variant called cicada, which is the most honest naming choice in years because it apparently hid underground and came back screaming. Segment 6. Tiger, Marshmallows, and the End of Shared Reality. Culturally, we are still the kind of country that can watch war, constitutional brinkmanship, labor upheaval, and extreme weather all unfold at once, then get fully hypnotized by body cam footage of Tiger Woods getting arrested. It is not even criticism anymore. It is anthropology. America will ignore a collapsing institutional order if a famous enough person stumbles near a police cruiser. Celebrity scandal is our national weighted blanket. We wrap ourselves in it whenever the larger machinery starts making sounds like a dryer full of bricks. And for a final garnish of lunacy, hackers stole a mountain of crypto on April Fool's Day, and people ignored it because they thought it was a joke, which is honestly the most online crime of all time. The hackers did not just exploit software, they exploited irony poisoning, which may be the strongest resource left on Earth. Meanwhile, in Michigan, a helicopter dropped marshmallows on children for fun, and I almost respect that, because it feels like local government understood the assignment. If the world is going to become incomprehensible, at least make sure the kids can sprint through a field for airborne sugar. On one side of America, military aircraft and executive orders are rewriting the future. On the other side, a county park is basically reenacting candy-based air support. That, right there, is the whole republic in one image. In conclusion, this week felt like somebody put the Constitution, the stock market, the Pentagon, Silicon Valley, and the Weather Channel in a clothes dryer with one brick and set it to permanent press. The through line is not just chaos, it is appetite. Appetite for control, for spectacle, for shortcuts, for profits, for narratives that can outrun the facts. Everything is getting centralized, weaponized, automated, or monetized, and usually by people swearing they are saving it. So keep your wallet close, your blood pressure lower than the crude oil chart if possible, and your eye on the people insisting this is all perfectly normal. Because when the mailman becomes an election gatekeeper, the army loses its head during a war, AI buys the newsroom, and the government stops counting disaster costs, you are not living through ordinary politics anymore. You are living in a country where the punchline has seized the means of production.